Hello and welcome to another episode of the DJ Project Criterion Collection. And here we're going to talk about Spine 300, the Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, directed by Wes Anderson, 2004. And yes, this is the outer slipcase, and within it is the illustration by Eric Chase Anderson, Wes's brother, who has done all the illustrations for all the Criterion releases. In fact, I believe this is the last time that there was ever any of that slipcase stuff. With the other, Bottle Rocket and Darjeeling Limited just has the Eric Chase Anderson drawings straight, and I think it looks better for it. But at any rate, I got this by 2000 when this came out in 2005. Wes Anderson was one of my favorite directors. I was still a big fan of Rushmore, and I even grew to like the Royal Tenenbaums. And I saw the Life Aquatic advertised. I didn't get a chance to see it in theaters, but I was waiting for it to come out in DVD, and sure enough, it did through Criterion, and so I was very happy. And I got it, and I had the same initial reaction as I did with the Royal Tenenbaums, where I liked it, but it was more of an ambivalence, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly what it was about it. I don't know if it was just trying to get used to all the elements, or that there was... Well, Wes Anderson gets accused now of making the same film over and over again, of having a set style and set parameters that just remain consistent throughout his films. There are some differences in the films, and I think going from Rushmore to the Royal Tenenbaums and to the Life Aquatic, you feel some things starting to expand a little bit, while still retaining its basic shape. Rushmore is much more of a chamber piece, and since it revolves around, namely, Max Fisher and his sort of surrogate family, consisting of Herman Bloom and Miss Cross, and so it's a bit more, it's a bit smaller and a little bit more intimate. Royal Tenenbaums was an ensemble piece, and you get a little bit of oh yeah, and the other aspect, not only is the number of characters smaller in Rushmore, but also the sense of time. This only happens over the course of a few months. The Royal Tenenbaums is in a slightly larger location, but still more or less confined. It's all in New York, and in a somewhat fantastical New York, a New York that's not. Doesn't entirely exist, and seems to exist more as a children's storybook. I mean, there's no such place as the 375th Street Y, but it's there in Wes Anderson's New York. But you get more of an ensemble piece, but still retains some intimacy, and in this case, it's a family, and you also get more of a sense of time, even though the bulk of the story takes place over, again, the span of a couple of months. There's also emphasis on a much longer background. The Life Aquatic also has that sense of history. This is a Steve Zissou has had a long career that spans a couple of decades. I think even 3. And he goes around the world. He's is an oceanographer, and yes, this is all based on Jacques Cousteau, in so many words, not with permission, of course. I don't have to. I'm representing myself, so I don't have to cover any of that. But the connections are definitely there. So it's an oceanographer. So the geography is now much bigger. It's now you get a sense of the world, even though it's largely in the ocean, but there's still a few moments where they're on land, but predominantly it's the ocean. And again, the ensemble is larger, and now you have some multiple generations in there. You have some new, some old, and it's just maybe that was it. Just trying to get used to how all these different elements work within the Wes Anderson universe, and maybe just getting used to the way that the dynamics and everything play. Or maybe it could just come down to that I was a more immature film viewer than I am now. It would take me a while to get used to all the elements the first go around, whereas I think now I tend to pick up on things a little bit quicker, and plus now I'm at the point where Wes Anderson has done a lot more films, and I'm now used to a lot of those elements. So at any rate, but like I said, it was more of an ambivalence, and it wasn't that I thought it was terrible. It's just that I didn't feel the wow, especially like I did with Rushmore. Maybe that was the other things that I really enjoyed Rushmore, and it was hard for me to warm up to the other films as well. But once I saw it a second time, then some things really clicked. Again, Wes Anderson, I still like the way that I often describe him, as he makes illustrated storybooks for adults, and there's a lot. This is what makes him interesting, is as far as there's not really a sense of realism. The places and the situations are a little bit on the fantastical side. Not necessarily out of this. I don't mean necessarily out of this world, but it doesn't really trace to anything real. There's the organizations that are there, they're not really real. The place names are not really real. And it's very much this. It does play out more like a storybook scenario. The kind of characters and the way and place names and some situations and such. But the other element of it is that, but at the same time, and this is kind of the interesting paradox, it does deal with more adult emotions and situations, like getting reacquainted with a long-lost son, marital difficulties, career slumps, questioning loyalties and questioning one's sanity, particularly of the captain, and it's all these things that play more to real life, but it's done in this very, very sort of childlike way. I mean, for instance, like Steve Zissou is an oceanographer and very much modeled after Jacques Cousteau. And some of the species of fish that he talks about, they don't exist. I mean, and including the elusive jaguar shark, which provides the main motivation for what Zissou does. And it's, it doesn't. Well, of course, what's funny is that in the film they talk about it doesn't exist, and we know in real life it doesn't really exist. But it is the kind of thing that you would find in a storybook. But to me, that's not what's really important. And in that sense, it's sort of following a cue from another Frenchman whose surname is similar to Cousteau, but not the same. I'm talking about Jean Cocteau. Another JC from France. The surface of it takes you back to being a child, but then there's also something in it that kind of speaks to the adult. In other words, and the two shall meet. And that's part of the charm, I think, of Wes Anderson. That's why some people like about Wes Anderson. And also, this is, and at the same time, this is what people can't stand about him. But in the end, it's all a matter of taste. If you like the guy, you like the guy. If you don't, you don't. I'm not asking you to like him if you don't. Again, this is all about my thoughts and impressions. So, I mean, all the trademarks of Wes Anderson are there, but also at the same time, you get the sense that this is him wanting to stretch his wings a little bit, and to try some new things, but also at the same time, you can't really, and certainly at that point, you can't really ask Wes Anderson to do anything completely different. You're not going to get a cinema verite out of Wes Anderson, although it would be quite interesting, and it wouldn't be that difficult to pull off considering his love for the nouvelle vague, particularly, and including both Godard and Truffaut. And yes, there's a Jules and Jim reference in The Life Aquatic as well. But at any rate, but you're not gonna. But I don't expect anything like Breathless to come from Wes Anderson or any of Jean Roche's films, or Cassavetes. Even though he's very familiar with those films, I don't really see that. That's not part of his style, and I don't expect that. So, I guess really, I mean, I'm sure I've said this before in regards to Wes Anderson. I think Rushmore is probably the best way to get into his works, and actually, since this came out a little bit more recently, I would throw in Moonrise Kingdom as another good entryway into Wes Anderson. But again, I would but also I would say Rushmore too. But so if you know about Wes Anderson, and you want to get more into it, go for it. But I don't know if I would recommend this as a first one or not, because his style is very, very particular, and I think you have to get used to it on a smaller. I think it's easier to take it at a smaller scale and with a smaller story like Rushmore than it is with The Life Aquatic. But all that being said, if you really like Wes Anderson, you really can't go wrong with it. And actually, the thing about Wes Anderson is that you can kind of pick your mood. While there are more similarities, but there are also enough differences to kind of go, you know what, I'm in the mood for something a little bit more smaller. I go for Rushmore. I want to see the world and go a little bit bigger. I go to Life Aquatic. So again, I'm sorry if I'm being kind of vague about it. I don't want to. I don't particularly like doing plot summaries or reviewing particular plot points, and especially since this is a film that's been around for a while, and certainly a lot of people on the internet tend to know, and it's not really useful to go into certain details. Interestingly enough, because Wes Anderson is all about details, and particularly when it comes to production design, you know, like every little thing counts in there. I guess one little detail that does stick out to me, I like it that Sega Ross is used at a very lovely moment towards the end, and again, his use of music, I like how he uses music, and it's not to demonstrate how, you know, what kind of artist he knows or how cool he is. It's really just, it's a combination of, this is music that interests him, and also music that helps to tell the story and reveal something of the characters. I guess another interesting thing is, since this is, while Bill Murray has worked with Wes Anderson before, both in Rushmore and in The Royal Tenenbaums, this is the time where he is front and center with Wes Anderson. And I think what's interesting is that it has a lot of the traits that you come to expect from both popular Bill Murray, you know, in the beginnings of his acting career, and the kind of indie Bill Murray that began in the '90s with Groundhog Day, and then him working with Wes Anderson, and then also in 2004 you have him working with Sofia Coppola in Lost in Translation, and so there's the thing I always think about with Bill Murray is that there's this snark to him. There's this sort of deadpan snark is what he's really good at. But it's also, and I think this is sort of characteristic of indie Bill Murray, is that it comes through in a very sort of subdued way, and you think that lacks in the potency, but I think it adds to it a little bit. It makes him come off as more cynical and more desperate, which is quite befitting with the story and the characters, since Steve Zissou is somebody who used to have some success and prominence, but this is at a point where his career is definitely in the doldrums, in the wane. He does not have the same kind of power and charm and allure that he may have had in the past. So this is someone very, very late in his career, which is interesting because this was a film that was directed by someone who is fairly, you know, not a complete neophyte, but still fairly young in his career. And his co-writer was Noah Baumbach, and who also was not quite a neophyte, but also was still kind of early in his career. I mean, this is not like Kurosawa making Ron, for instance, where that was definitely a film made by an older man who has seen a lot and feels a lot more cynical. So yeah, but yeah, like I said, if you like Wes Anderson, can't go wrong with Life Aquatic. And if you already like Wes Anderson, you probably already have this anyway. And if you don't like Wes Anderson, then you're probably not going to care either way. So, but I like it. It's no longer ambivalence. It is a very enjoyable Wes Anderson. Rushmore still has a very special spot in my heart. I still consider that to be my favorite. And if I were to take one Wes Anderson film with me, it would be Rushmore. But I definitely like The Life Aquatic more than I did when I first saw it back in 2005. So there you go. The Life Aquatic. And until next time, take care.